Hey, so how's it, everybody? Welcome back to Freedom Fanatics, where your freedom is worth fighting. Guys, today I'm joined by my esteemed colleague who is also celebrating a birthday today, Tiego. So happy birthday to you, good sir. And new
Thank you
face
very
on the
much.
show, an intern with the Freedom Fanatics crew, Chris Patterson. Chris, it's great to have you on. Guys, so today we're gonna start with a good news story. We've been leaning on good things, guy, for a while now, and I think it's just because we want to take a positive spin on stuff, and when things get, we don't need to remind you what's bad and in what's going on around us. So this story comes out of KwaZulu-Natal, and it's from about a student at the University of KZN. So his name was Dumisani Ngobese, and essentially he graduated from his undergraduate degree, and he got very emotional, and the recording of the moment went viral on social media, and I think really it was just a emotional outpouring after his for him, having graduated and the struggle that he took to get there. And essentially he was raised by his maternal grandmother, and I think outside Mpangeni, in a township outside Mpangeni. And yeah, I think it was just a big moment for him. His maternal grandmother raised him together with 9 other children, and she was the sole breadwinner in their family, and worked to support them as a street vendor. So, Tieko, I'm sure there are many stories like this, and definitely something worth celebrating.
Definitely. No, I first and foremost, I think let me send my message of congratulations to Dumisani for his attainment of his degree. And having read about where he comes from, really, it was quite important that he does attain this degree. The reality of the matter is that in the society that we live in, you either have to empower yourself to attain certain skills and ways of doing things so you can sell your labor to the labor market,
Mm,
or you could go into starting a business or something of that nature. But of course, that does require a lot of capital to start that. Not everyone can start off with that. So it's a good start to start with education, get all the skills, empower yourself, and let's get it off from there. But now let's delve into the actual story, right? Into the actual story, I think indeed it is a good story that a young man who came from a rural area, having grown up in a poor background, a grandmother who struggled to get him to school, ultimately finished his qualification and luckily found a job. But much as this is it is a good story, and I'm sorry that I have to be the one who always crashes the good stories on this show. Much as it is a good story, it's an individual's good story. In the broader context of things, really, we are still faced with the highest unemployment South Africa has ever seen. We are still faced with an education system that's collapsing. We are still faced with an economy that's not growing and many other issues.
mm,
And so, this one particular story, yes, we must celebrate it, but we should certainly carry on with the fight of fixing the rest of the issues that we have in society. So the next time someone doesn't get a job from because someone is pitying them, because ultimately it's that kind
mm.
of a thing. Someone is pitying you and giving you a job. It shouldn't be that. It should be based on skills. But we do congratulate the young man on the attainment of his qualification. Show.
No, Tioko, I think that's an awesome reality check. Chris, what are your impressions? I mean, someone like this is going into. I mean, it's great that and we'll come to that a little bit later. He's been offered a job, but we'll jump into that later. But also, on average, about 25% of people don't actually complete their university bachelor's degree. So, in a way, he's one of a few to actually excel. But what are your general thoughts? about the story and maybe some of Tiego's comments?
I would say that he's very lucky to find a job, to be offered a job, when so many graduates don't end up finding a job because the degree that they do, they don't find jobs for. And that unemployment rate and that youth unemployment rate specifically is sort of a dampening effect, has a dampening effect on their will to find a job. And they sort of, there's no opportunities for them, so automatically they less fortunate. And I must say, like Tiego said, congratulations to him for finding a job, for getting a job. And I hope that he's most successful in it. And also, there's many people like him with many inspiring stories like him who won't find a job. So yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think so.
Lucky.
Tiego, I mean, the job that he's found with his degree, I mean, obviously he's very proud to have accomplished it. And I remember, when I was at university, we wanted to we had to make documentary films for our degree. And initially, I pitched an idea. I approached this guy who is from, I think he was from sort of in the interior of the Eastern Cape, near Dutra. And we approached him. We said, like, he had a very similar background, and we wanted to share his story. How we can scale up the success of people making it through, making it through South Africa's faulty education system, making it to a prestigious university like the University of Cape Town. And the father actually said, "You know what? I don't want you to do this until you have graduated and have secured a job." So I think there's something important there. But the man who's given him a job has obviously created this position. But I think the important thing, obviously, is just creating a job for this guy, which is maybe neither here nor there. But I think for me, the important thing is that at least he'll get some work experience. And I think there's something missing there in South Africa's post-school or post-secondary school sort of education program. What are your thoughts on that?
No, definitely. I entirely think we must at a micro level celebrate this as a success story. Yet not at a macro level. At a macro level, like I've mentioned, we are still faced with a huge crisis. But for this particular individual, like Chris said, I do hope that he does succeed in his job, and I hope that he grows and continues to grow from this position moving forward, continue to grow his skills so he could become more market, so the market can demand you more. The more you attain skills, the more the market needs you. So I hope he does get to that point. Sure.
Chris, any last comments on the story? I mean, we've got, so this, I think what stands out to me in this story is we've got a private businessman of a very similar background. So we say, like, these successes can probably be scaled up, of course. And this comes from a guy called Calvin Matibeli, who owns some companies, and he sort of, the story resonated with him, sort of probably saw himself in Dumisani. So, I mean, here we really have an example of ordinary people stepping in where the structures are, where the state is letting people down. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we should say thank you to him also, the business owner, for making this job for this man, because it's sort of there's he's out on a limb here, given all the problems that small medium enterprises face in this country. So yeah, thank you to you also.
If I may just jump in, I have one hope. Well, firstly, let me appreciate that I think we should appreciate that the private sector has always created the most jobs in society. As things stand, I think the government creates around 25% of the jobs, and the rest of the 75% is created by the private sector, which is why really we should push for the privatization of our society at large, and have a limited government so people could have jobs and be able to provide for themselves and their loved ones. But I think there's also something, and there's in South Africa, once something happens, there starts being a trend of that thing. Once something of this nature happens, I hope we don't get to a point whereby the private sector will start hiring people out of feeling pity for them moving forward. Given the situation that we are in, there's gonna be a lot of people, of course, who are well deserving, but the system as it is as it currently stands locks them out because the economy is not growing, there are no job opportunities and stuff. I hope we don't get to that point like we have gotten with social grants, whereby it becomes the order of the day to hand out jobs, and we continue celebrating such things. I think we should celebrate it today, but we should ensure that in future we don't have to have an individual private person coming in creating a job to save someone. We should allow the market to run its course, and by running its course, automatically jobs will be created. Here, I think it's like I said, it's a micro success story, but we do really need a macro success story, a success story that majority of young people in South Africa can share in.
Absolutely. No, I think, I agree completely too. I think there's something a little bit discouraging about there being so much hype about a story like this. This kind of thing shouldn't be that unusual. And of course, I mean, we've attended graduation ceremonies at university. You see these kind of things all the time. And I think it's not sustainable. And I think it's definitely, there's a place that we need to get to as a society where we can credibly absorb graduates into our labor market. But chaps, let's move along to our second story for today. And again, we love to sort of rubbish the idea of talking about potholes, but I thought this one really did catch my attention yesterday. And but for a specific reason. Now, I'm from Johannesburg. Today we're talking to you live from the Cape, from Limpopo, as well as Johannesburg. And Joburg has a serious pothole problem. And what happened here is that Discovery and I think a Budget Insurance essentially signed a deal with the city of Johannesburg that they would repair potholes of a certain width and diameter, and they have exceeded their 90,000 projection for potholes to be fixed. And essentially, the main reason that they've done this is to limit the amount of insurance claims that they receive. Now, obviously, that's their own incentive to do it, but also it's saving private individuals money. Chris, what are your thoughts on this sort of this partnership between city government and the private sector?
I think it's quite good, because this is sort of a success story that can be replicated across the country. There's not only potholes in Joburg, there's potholes in Durban, there's potholes down here in Cape Town, there's potholes in Uppington, for example. And the number of potholes aren't just going to stop growing. So those partnerships are good.
Absolutely. Tiego, so what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think you already know what I'm gonna say, Alex. I think I've already made similar sentiments a long time ago. But my thoughts are that it's a good thing that we see the private sector coming together with the state with the government, local government, to fix potholes. But my concern remains one, as I've always mentioned, that if the private sector is coming and doing this job, then what is the money that we as citizens and residents are paying to these municipalities then doing? That then becomes the question. Things shouldn't have had to get to this point, right? We shouldn't be here. On a monthly basis, on a daily basis, we pay local governments money, and that's money that should be fixing these things. Now, the private sector now has to now come in and step in and start assisting the government it tells us that the government is failing, and it's something that we've always said, that the government cannot handle everything. So if anything, I think this in particular is a good story for one reason for me, and for the freedom advocacy network, really, that we have a private institution here illustrating that the private sector can get the job done much better than the government can. Let's limit the government. Stuff such as this ones that the government is failing at, indeed, let's give it to the private sector. But as well, let's give them the money to do the stuff. They shouldn't have to do the stuff out of their own pockets. Let the money come from the money that we contribute towards the government, so we can excel as a society, and we don't harm these businesses and end up in a situation whereby these businesses must start retrenching workers again.
Absolutely. I mean, this is money coming out of the pockets of these businesses, literally to step in where the government has failed, and you see this replicated across all sorts of industries. But I think what's quite exciting about this is that the openness of government to work with the private sector, maybe in an acknowledgement of where they are failing. So at least they're, baby steps. We're getting there, but I totally agree that we need accountability. But Chris, I think maybe thinking more about what ordinary citizens can do, because Tiego speaks about accountability, speaks about the fact that, the government is the purser, they hold the money, and should be spending it wisely. This kind of thing is maybe something that people can think about when they go to the ballot boxes, is, I want you to, if it's not something, democracy is not this highfalutin thing, it can be as simple as, if you want your potholes fixed, vote for somebody who you think you can vote for. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I think service delivery is the main driver for voters, because without it, you don't sort of get what you want. So yeah,
absolutely.
Service delivery is what, when I went to vote, for example, I used service delivery as one of my main points of why I went to vote. I went to vote for service delivery. So, and I got what I wanted. So yeah.
No, it's awesome. I mean, what are the kind of things in your, tell us a bit about that. Whereabouts are you based at the moment? What are the kind of service delivery issues that you as a citizen wanted solved?
So mainly, we have down here in the northern suburbs, for example, there's quite a bit of potholes that need filling. There's refuse problems sometimes. So we contact the city, and normally the city of Cape Town comes within a day or two, and they fix the problems. So that's what I want. I want quick service delivery. I don't want the refuse to be standing out there for 2 weeks and nothing's being done. So I'll vote for somebody who gets their work done as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Tiego, so any last thoughts before we jump into burning questions? You look like you're ready.
Yeah, my last thoughts are really around why people vote. I think people vote for different reasons. I'm glad that Chris votes for service delivery. I vote for same reasons. But the truth is that I have traveled across Limpopo. I have traveled across the Eastern Cape whilst I was still based that side. I've gotten to go to some of the rural areas. I've spent weeks, for example, in Begasfort here in Limpopo, which is a rural area, really. And the shocking thing for me is that a lot of people in such areas vote for different reasons from the reasons that Chris has given. In Begasfort, for example, people vote, and not only vote, but vote for the very government of the day, because they are of the belief that if they don't continue voting for this government, they'll lose their social grants for kids, social grants for elders and stuff. So it's a kind of politics that are pushed in such areas, right? The politicians come to them and tell them that the rest of these political parties don't care about you.
Yeah.
So and so party was associated with the apartheid government. So and so party is a party of thugs and whatnot. We are the only party that cares about you. We give you social grants. if you don't vote for us, chances are that you're going to lose social grants. So in places such as Begasfort, I found that in the rural part of Begasfort in particular, I found that a lot of people there vote because they are scared of losing social grants over anything else. So I think in different parts of the country, we'll find that there are different reasons around this, and we really do have the moral duty, each of us who really understand how the system of governance work and really what things people should really look at when participating in elections, and what the government can do, what the government cannot do. It's really, I think, upon us to take it upon us and educate people around such things. I try my part whenever I'm in Begasfort to explain to people that no, man, there's no such a thing. There's no such a thing. These policies were brought about by Parliament, not a particular individual. They were supported by many political parties. I remember when social grants were established, for example, I think the proposal was, of course, made by the ANC, but political parties such as the IFP, political parties such as the DA were in support of the proposal. So yeah, there's that. We also have that responsibility of helping to fix the false narrations that some parties are using to gain political support on the ground, especially now that really we are moving into 2024, and 2024 will be a highly contested election. There's gonna be a lot of false information on the ground, and especially in your rural areas where unfortunately many people are illiterate and really don't have a good idea of how governance works, how our public representatives are actually our representatives who we pay as citizens, people who don't have such understandings, and the fact that the government is our government. There's essentially no government without the people. Every cent that the government has comes from either the people or the business sector. The government in and of itself doesn't have resources, right? So such narrations, I think, moving towards 2024 and forward, we'd have to fix such narrations so more people can vote for reasons, practical reasons similar to those that Chris has given.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one reason would be to get yourself off a social grant and get an economy that employs people that add value to the society rather than relying on handouts from the government. But I think it's some really interesting points that in the run up to 2024 that I think we've got our work cut out for here at FAN. But guys, on that note, remember to follow us at Badger of Liberty. You can find us where you are on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. Guys, that is all that we have for today for you on Freedom FANatics. Thanks so much to Chris and Tiego. And yeah, we have a very exciting episode of Burning Questions coming up now with Mbali.
Hello and welcome to another episode of #Burning Questions. Hi Alex, hi Tiego, and welcome to a new face. Hi Chris. Okay, I think Chris is waving. Great. All right, guys. Let's get right into today's episode, and the code card we have today is from Mr. Richard Maponya, and it reads: our youngsters are growing up with the idea of having everything for free. It's an entitlement attitude. That sense of entitlement has killed the initiative of youngsters. Alex, what do you think about this quote? And considering the fact that you guys were just now speaking about Dumisani, who got a
job made for him. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yes.
No, I think Richard Maponya was an incredible man. A stalwart businessman, and he's the namesake of Maponya Mall in Soweto. And I think he's definitely onto something here. And I think it's important when we look at these quotes to look at the quote from the person and the context that they say it in. This is a man who's built businesses, who's created many, many, many jobs. So I think we mustn't take lightly what he's saying. And I think it's something we hear often, right? South Africans are just entitled, But I think there's something to be said when someone of his esteem in the business world tells us what we think.
Okay, Diego, a quick one. Are South Africans entitled, or is the youth of South Africa entitled? Include yourself there, sir. Thanks.
Well, I would say that, no actual study. I don't think any actual study has been done around this. So what I say, take it as my opinion. But I would say definitely the majority of South Africans are very entitled. And I mean, look, for example, at the people who are pushing for the land issue, your EFF and young people in your Fismas Falls and everything, right? While there's some sort of weight in the arguments that they raise, but at the very center of the arguments that they raise normally is the issue of entitlement. Firstly, people like the EFF, young people in the EFF, feel entitled to the South African land, for example, right? They feel entitled to it, they call it their land and stuff of that nature, but in reality, this land doesn't belong to them and has actually never belonged to them. Of course, they make references to things like your colonization, that white colonizers came into South Africa, took the land from our ancestors, as if white colonizers arrived in South Africa and found their colonizers owning every part of the land, or their ancestors staying in unity and stuff of that nature, as if colonizers arrived in South Africa and there was peace and no fights. But the reality of the matter is that there has always been that struggle of fighting for the land, even amongst Africans. Like I've mentioned, how some of these kingdoms came about. The Sekhukhune Kingdom, the Bapedi Kingdom, for example. Tulare, the first person who founded it, came from Botswana, came into South Africa. Using his military, he conquered all the kingdoms that were around here in the northern part of South Africa and formed the Bapedi tribe, forced all those smaller kingdoms and formed the mother kingdom. What do we refer to it as again? But anyway, formed the Bapedi tribe, and now all those other small kingdoms were forced to report to him. All the kings of those small kingdoms were forced to marry wives from his kingdom and stuff of that nature. Yet South Africans these young South Africans in your EFFs and stuff still feel entitled that the land belongs to them. Stuff such as when it comes to fees, for example. We recently saw a protest by COSAS, which is the learners organization that's in partnership with the African National Congress. COSAS operates at a high school level. We recently saw them protesting to the JSE in Sandton, demanding that private businesses that side donate. If I recall well, it was R1 million, demanding, by the way, not asking, not saying that we need your assistance, saying that no, you are operating in our country, you have made all your wealth through our resources and everything of that nature, which is really nonsense. These people have never owned resources before and in their individual capacities. So for them to say that these businesses are making money out of things that belong to them, it's really nothing but entitlement, if you were to ask. But even if you look at some of the protests that are emerging in the country led by young people, a lot of them are protests led by people who are demanding stuff that don't belong to them at all. People saying that we should be taxed more so the government can increase the amount of money it gives to young unemployed people. They feel entitled to my salary. I mean, I work very hard for my own salary. Why feel entitled to my salary that the government should increase the tax on my salary and give you that money? It's nonsensical. So essentially, I am saying to you that I do think that generally young people in South Africa feel entitled, and that culture of entitlement should end if we are to get anywhere as a society. Everyone should go back to working for themselves, like we have always done in the history of humanity. In
Yep.
Africa, in Asia, in Europe, in every continent, people have always known that you have to work for yourself so you can put food on your table. And those that cannot work for themselves are those that help was provided for. We need to get back to that. People mustn't feel entitled to our own work. We must all go and work and yeah, take it from there.
Definitely. Thank you for that, Mr. Tiego. So okay, the first comment we have comes from Craig, and I think Craig really agrees with the sentiments that are being shared here. And he says, "Truth: the world owes nobody anything." But also, I'm just like, the world kind of does owe us something. It's been too unkind, but that's not what we're talking about. Chris, what are your thoughts? The world owes nobody anything. Do you agree?
Yes, I do. I was always told that nothing in life is free, and then you need to work for what you want. So, yeah, that's sort of the basis from where I come. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I also wanted to add that it's all about family and family values. And if the family values aren't there, you're missing something that is quite integral to how you view the world and your place in the world. So, yeah.
That's true. I definitely agree. Okay, guys. Comment number 2. This comes from Hugh Robertsons. And he says, a problem created by the ANC and others willing to give away free stuff without thought to the country's structural needs or real employment creation. Rid ourselves of race-based policies and the country will grow. Alex, will the country grow if we get rid of race-based policies?
I think it's definitely a good start. Because essentially, if you look at something like the whole idea on BEE and affirmative action, preferential procurement, these are all based on ideas that you, whether maybe not intended so, but what it's become is giving contracts or other such things on the basis not on merit. So I think, that's when you start getting entitled, oh, because I know you I'll slip you a little brown envelope and you can give me this tender, or I can get, or even how a policy like BE plays out in the private sector. When you force private companies to hire people solely based on race, then it can create a sense of entitlement or undermine the whole idea that you can, as Chris says, work hard to get something. And the problem of that is then people who, of all races who are qualified, feel cheated by the system, and you lose the best brains of no matter how much melatonin is in their skin. So I think definitely if we can get race-based policies out of the system to start with, I agree with you. I think we can be on the road to recovery for sure.
Definitely. Okay, let us go to the third comment. It's a bit weird because I can't read. Okay, so Andre starts with and will kill. I think he's agreeing to the code card. And will kill our economies to come because they want handouts from the state. No initiatives to generate for the old and the poor. Okay, so Diego, thoughts on what Andre is saying? He's talking about the fact that youth entitlement rather kills the economy. Is that true?
Absolutely. And I don't think it will just kill the economy to come. I think it's already killing the economy as things stand. Things are not looking good. And at the very center of why things are not looking good is the issue of entitlement on young people's part and really all majority of citizens of all ages and really of age groups. But I do agree that this is a culture that was created by the government of the day. Say all you want to say about the apartheid system. It was a terrible system, discriminated against black people, but the governance where they governed, where the apartheid government was delivering services were delivered properly. Where the apartheid government was, they were not handing out. It was not a government rooted in handouts, right? It was a government, much as it was a bad government, it was a government that was rooted on the principle of people having to work, although it made some limitations to who can have access to what work and who can't have access to what work. Now, I think that's something we should return to. There's certainly a lot that we could learn from the apartheid government, a lot of positives there, but more than anything, there's a lot that we could learn from economies such as the Singapore economy, whereby people are really encouraged to work, and work. That's really the only way that we could, each of us, get ourselves out of, each of us improve our lives, and those who are in poverty get out of poverty. Those who are in the middle class wanting to go to the upper class, and everything of that nature can do that. But indeed, the issue of entitlement is really killing our economy. The fact that there's a conversation currently in government corridors, government considering increasing the grant that it gives to young unemployed people and stuff of that nature, and that the fact that that comes from the very question of entitlement, and the consequences that that would have on our economy. We'd have less money to spend on on delivering services. If you have less money to spend on delivering services, it then means then that things start deteriorating, then businesses start running away and stuff of that nature. So it's a really a complex matter, but the essential point is that yes, entitlement and people who are just going to sit down and not want to work for their own food, it's not going to get us far. It's going to kill our economy.
Definitely. But maybe a young South African will come to you and say, Diego, I can hear you say I must go work, I must go find a job or whatever. But there are no jobs in South Africa, especially for young people. What would you say to that young South African? And don't say go start a business. What else would you say?
Of course, I wouldn't say they must go start a business, but it's a bit of a complex matter because at the very heart, at the very heart of the crisis, are our policymakers. So now, when a young person comes, really, there's not much advice I could give because the real changes need to happen at the macro level. It need to happen at the policy level, need to happen at the governance level. What I would do is
So then wait. So wait.
What
Are we then saying that they're not wrong in a way to be entitled because they don't really have much of a choice?
No, we are saying they are wrong for want. Well, I am saying that they are wrong for wanting more and more social grants from the government. Instead, they should demand for the government to privatize. They should demand for privatization in our society so more jobs could be created rather than demanding that the government gives you social grants. Essentially, you are saying that give me money and I'll go sit down. Anyone who's a hard worker naturally and anyone who truly wants to work will go to government and say, no, I don't want your social grant. What I actually want is a job so I can work for my income and have that dignity of working for my own income and providing for my family out of my own hands or mind and whatever, out of my own hard work.
That's true. That is true. Alex and Chris, any last sentiments or views or opinions?
I think
I'll let Chris have the final word.
The government, okay, the government should focus rather than on giving out grants. They should focus on providing incentives and opportunities, and unemployed people and graduates and people who are dependent on grants should urge the government to provide incentives and opportunities for them to find a job and not rely on those grants for everything.
Yeah, that's true. But wait, do you guys not think that the government is doing it on purpose? Like this thing of having grants, it's like they're doing it on purpose so that they always have these people that depend on them. And if obviously they have people who depend on them, it's like, okay, these people are always going to vote for us and no one is going to take us out from being I'm talking about the ANC when I'm talking about government. So it's like the ANC will always kind of be the ruling party because they're always going to have these people who depend on them. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that, and we spoke about it a bit on Freedom Fanatics. How the how people have this, as Tiego mentioned, people have this perception that grants come from the ANC, not from the government, from taxpayers' money. And I think that it really is a big issue that political parties have to deal with leading up to 2024, is trying to debunk this narrative. And I think it's weaponized. I think the government has weaponized social grants to keep people loyal to the movement, to the ANC. So I think it's a massive issue. But I think, and Tieko has spoken on about it before on previous episodes, is people want to work, people want the dignity to work, and social grants is the lowest of the low if in terms of being able to support yourself and to be able to support your family. It's not a natural way of thinking that I want to be dependent on going to the post office once a month or the SASSA office to collect, what is equivalent to maybe 2 grocery shop trips, So I think it's definitely, I think if there's some, I don't know how hard it would be to try and unwind that narrative, and I think there is a deliberate tactic on the part of the ANC for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Dejo.
If I could just jump in, Mbali, I think I'm burning inside me. Perhaps it's because
Okay,
it's my
sir.
birthday today, and I have
Yes.
all the energy in the
Happy
world.
birthday.
But I think it's a twofold that matter. Firstly, I think we have the ANC doesn't know what it's doing. First and foremost, I think that's something I must say. They don't have a good understanding of how to grow the economy. And as a result, the second matter now. As a result, they have to end up using these things to gain support on the ground, right? They end up having to use it, but this comes because they have failed. They are failing to create a more sustainable thing that would get them the votes. So they end up, just handing out money because we can't create jobs. We don't know how to go about with this thing. We'd rather hand out. I think it's that kind of a twofold that matter, sure.
Guys, I think we've come to the end of our show. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. And remember, your freedom is worth fighting for.